Hey everyone, thanks for joining in. I'm at the Underground. Maybe you've heard about it before, but here it is in all its glory. What we're doing is on Sunday we had a bit of a glitch, a technical glitch, which resulted in no video being recorded for the message. And we really want to have our messages online available to whoever wants to listen to them, to go through the coffee questions that are designed to help you and some friends over a cup of coffee just dig a little bit deeper into the message. And so what we've done is we've come down to the Underground today to re-record the message. And so that's what I'm doing. So thank you for tuning in. Thanks for your patience as we kind of work our way through all this stuff. And we hope to see you on Sunday morning. Thanks again for tuning in.
You've been accused of practicing medicine without a license. It's a very grave charge, son. Are you aware that it's unlawful to practice medicine without a medical license?
Yes, sir, I am.
Are you aware that running a medical clinic without the proper licensing can place both you and the public in a great deal of danger?
Is a home a clinic, sir?
If you are admitting patients and treating them, physical location is irrelevant.
Yes, sir. Will you define treatment for me?
Yes, treatment would be defined as the care of a patient seeking medical attention. Have you been treating patients, Mr. Adams?
Well, sir, I live with several people. They come and go as they please. I offer them whatever help I can.
Mr. Adams, have you or have you not been treating patients at your ranch?
Everyone who comes to the ranch is a patient, yes. And every person who comes to the ranch is also a doctor.
I'm sorry.
Every person who comes to the ranch is in need of some form of physical or mental help. They're patients. But also every person who comes to the ranch is in charge of taking care of someone else, whether it's cooking for them, cleaning them, or even a simple task as listening. That makes them doctors. I use that term broadly, gentlemen, but is not a doctor someone who helps someone else? When did the term doctor get treated with such reverence as, oh, right this way, Dr. Smith, or, excuse me, Dr. Scholes, what wonderful foot pads, or, pardon me, Dr. Patterson, but your flatulence has no odor. At what point in history did a doctor become more than a trusted and learned friend who visited and treated the ill? Now, you ask me if I've been practicing medicine. Well, if this means opening your door to those in need, those in pain, caring for them, listening to them, applying a cold cloth until a fever breaks, if this is practicing medicine, if this is treating a patient, then I am guilty as charged, sir.
Did you consider the ramifications of your actions? What if one of your patients had died?
What's wrong with death, sir? What are we so mortally afraid of? Why can't we treat death with a certain amount of humanity and dignity and decency and, God forbid, maybe even humor? Death is not the enemy, gentlemen. If we're going to fight a disease, let's fight one of the most terrible diseases of all, indifference. Now, I've sat in your schools and heard people lecture on transference and professional distance. Transference is inevitable, sir. Every human being has an impact on another.
Hello, thank you for checking in online. My name is Garry. I'm the lead pastor at the meeting place. Really glad you're joining us as we wrap up a series we began a few weeks ago called There's an App for That, with the premise being that just as there are apps designed for our devices to help make life simpler, the same can be said about the Bible. The Bible has all kinds of apps that are designed by the God who created you, who created me, to help us in our everyday life. And today we're going to look at an app that if applied, has the potential and the power to transform both the people around us and us ourselves. The clip we watched coming into this was from the movie Patch Adams. Came out in 1998. It's hard to believe, 21 years ago. It's based on the true story of a man named Hunter Adams, portrayed masterfully by Robin Williams. Hunter Patch Adams, after suffering years of bullying and abuse, voluntarily committed himself to a mental institution. And while he was there as a patient, he found that helping his fellow patients gave him a new purpose, a new direction in life. And so he decides to become a doctor so he can more effectively help people around him. And so he checks himself out of the mental institution and he enrolls in medical school. And despite his getting top marks in his class, his unorthodox methods cast him up against the professors and the doctors of the university. But while he was in school, as he's making his way through and he's doing his practicum at the local hospitals, he discovers that many poor people are not receiving treatment. And so, as a student, he goes out and he starts a clinic called the Gesundheit Clinic. You know how after you sneeze you say Gesundheit? That's what it was named after, because in German, Gesundheit means good health. And he opened it so he could aid those who were not receiving proper treatment at the hospital. This move, however, got him into trouble with the Medical Review Board because in their view, he was practicing medicine without a license, which is exactly what that clip was about that we just watched. That was him defending his position. And I don't know if you heard it or not. He said something in that little diatribe that he went through that caught my ear. And here's what he said. He said, every human being has an impact on another. Every human being has an impact on another. And he's right, isn't he? It's true. You and I have the influence and the power to influence and impact another human being. And one of the ways we best do that is with words. Words are so powerful. In fact, we just experienced the power of words in that clip, didn't we? I'm not sure about you, but every time I've watched that clip, I get inspired. And I find myself silently cheering him on, like, yeah, you show them, you tell them how it is. And maybe the same was true for you, but words are powerful. Words can wound, words can heal, words can build up, words can tear down, words can discourage, words can encourage. In fact, there are ancient proverbs written thousands of years ago that confirm the power of words. King Solomon, who gave us a book called Proverbs, it's found in the Bible. It's full of all these little short pithy sayings, full of wisdom, life apps that if we applied them, life would be so much better. And here's what he wrote in words about words. He says, the tongue has the power of life and death. That's a lot of power. The tongue has the power of life and death. Wouldn't it be wise then for us to be careful how we use our words? Because here's the thing with words. Once we say them, we can't get them back. Words are like bullets in a gun. Once you pull the trigger, there's no getting it back. And who of us here hasn't experienced a moment like that? Just as words are leaving our mouth, our brain catches up and we think to ourselves, I can't believe I just said that. I was golfing at a local golf course a few years back. It was a beautiful day, perfect day for golf, except the foursome that was in front of us. They were painfully slow. It may have had something to do with the fact that pretty much every shot they took either ended up in a ditch or in the bush, which is no big deal, except every time this happened, it turned out into an all-out search and rescue mission. I was waiting for helicopters to come flying in and people were rappelling down ropes trying to find these balls. It was crazy. And golf, like any sport, has a set of rules. But it also has one more component to it. It's something called etiquette. Like yelling four when your ball is rocketing over to the other fairway and you yell four so the unaware golfer can duck, and I'm really good at it. I get a lot of practice yelling four. Some other etiquette is to replace your divot. You know, it's that piece of real estate that sometimes goes further than your ball. Again, I get lots of practice doing that. And when you do that, sometimes you violate the other piece of etiquette in golf, and that's using foul language. And let's just skip that one. I won't even talk about that one. But here's one. Allowing faster players to play through. Clearly, these guys were oblivious to that whole thing. And by the time we got to the fifth hole, we were standing on the tee box, and there were three groups standing behind us waiting to tee off. Well, we grind our way through this 9 holes, and we get to the end, and as we're walking toward the 10th hole, we notice that the group in front of us is heading to the parking lot. And I said a little prayer. I said, yes, they're only doing 9 holes. Thank you, God. And as we made our way to the 10th hole, one of the guys in our group said, you know what, I can't finish these last 9 holes. I got to go home, man. That took so long. I've got an appointment I got to get to. I'm going to have to bow out. And I thought, man, things are really looking up. It's going to be a threesome, back 9. It's going to go really fast. But just as we were about to tee off, this guy comes running up to us, and he says, is it okay if I join you guys? And we all agreed, and as I was standing there waiting to tee off, I struck up a conversation with this guy. Usual conversational fodder, you know, what's your name, where are you from, do you golf much, that kind of thing. He answered, he asked me the same questions, I returned the courtesy. We tee off, he hits his ball, I hit my ball, and as we're walking out to where our shots landed, he's walking beside me and he asked me how my day was going. And I said, really good, especially now that the foursome that was in front of us has gone home. And I went on to explain how bad these guys were and how they sucked at golf and the whole bit. And that's when he said, yeah, I was in that group. Man, I thought the first 9 holes were slow. We all have moments like that. And sometimes those moments, as time passes, are funny. We look back at them and we laugh, just like that one. But then there are those other moments that even after a long bit of time has passed, still aren't funny. I mean, think back to some of the words that were said to you by maybe a parent or a sibling, a coworker, a coach, a teacher. Words that stuck in your mind. Words that they probably, if you asked them today, wouldn't even remember saying them. Or if they did, it was like, well, I didn't mean it that way. But nonetheless, when they said them, it hit you hard. And it deflated your confidence and your self-esteem. I remember in grade 6, part of our assignment in this class was called language arts, and I know that's aging myself. Most people that are under 40 wouldn't understand language arts, but I think it's called English today. But we had this assignment where we had to read a section of a book we were reading, and I remember the book vividly. It was called A Wrinkle in Time, and the teacher assigned each of us a reading. We had to go to the front of the class and do this reading. And I remember getting called up to the front to do it was my turn, and I started to read. And I thought, you know, I just put everything I had into it, as much enthusiasm as I could muster. And I thought I let fly with a pretty good job of bringing that story to life. Apparently, the teacher didn't see my performance quite the same way. Partway through, she stopped me. And in front of the whole class, and in less than a flattering voice, she said, Garry, quit speaking to the page. Make eye contact with us. And quit mumbling. You sound like you have a mouthful of marbles. Enunciate your words. It makes it so much more enjoyable for the listening audience if we can understand what you're saying. And then she just said, carry on, and sat down. Man, the power of words spoken by people we admire, who are in positions of authority over us, people we value as friends, people that we look up to. I left school that day feeling like the proverbial wind had been knocked out of me. My self-esteem and self-confidence had taken a huge hit. And maybe you can identify with that story, one like it, or maybe for you today, you're living that story right now. Someone, a parent, a significant other, a friend, has said something to you, and it has knocked the wind out of you. And it's left you gasping for breath, but more than that, it's left you grasping for revenge. Because it's only fair, right, that we get back at somebody? And it's such a strong drive. I struggle with it. I still struggle with it, and maybe you do too. What happens is, it's that whole tit-for-tat mentality, except it isn't. And here's what I mean by that. More often than not, when we retaliate against somebody, we always dole out just a little bit more than what we received. And if you want proof of this, we see it play out in back seats of SUVs and cars all across Canada every summer as the families go on their family vacations, and the kids are in the back seat, and one, it starts with a pinch, and then the other one retaliates with a poke, and then they retaliate back with a slap, and then they retaliate with a punch, and on it goes. And we all know how getting even ends, don't we? It doesn't. It just perpetuates and escalates the situation because the payback we've just doled out comes right back at us, just like a boomerang. And I think we'd all agree that in the end, there's no winning when it comes to getting even. There's no winner. And so the question becomes, what do we do when we find ourselves in a situation where we've been treated unfairly, words have been said to us or about us, and they've left us feeling dejected, discouraged, even outraged, and looking for payback? Well, I'm glad you asked that question because, well, there's an app for that. And it's one that we're all familiar with. It doesn't matter what your church background is. Maybe today's your first day you've ever been in a church. I can almost bet that you have heard of this app. And here it is. Do to others what you would like them to do to you. Do to others what you would like them to do to you. Those words, of course, are from Jesus, but today they're more commonly referred to as the golden rule. Maybe the phrasing you're more familiar with, that you grew up with, is treat others how you would like to be treated. And just imagine if we all did that. It would change the world. It would literally change the world if we just stopped for a moment and thought, you know what, I'm going to treat that person the way I want to be treated. But I don't want to go too big here or Pollyanna thinking or anything like that. Let's just shrink it down to our sphere of influence, our little world. Do to others whatever you would like them to do to you. And here's how this would look in the context of what we're talking about this morning. When you've been hurt by somebody's barrage of words, don't let even one rotten word seep out of your mouth. Instead, offer only fresh words that build others up when they need it the most. That way, your good words will communicate grace to those who hear them. If you're anything like me, I know what you're thinking when you hear those words, because I think it all the time. It's like, that's not fair. Not to mention not fun. Why do I have to be the one that has to take it? Like, what's that all about? Again, that's a fair question. And before I throw out my thoughts around that, I just want to be clear about one thing. That whole thing about, you taking it or what seems like you take, this isn't about being somebody's whipping boy, about just taking it, losing your dignity, not standing up for yourself, being a doormat. It's not about that at all. What this is about, what that verse is saying is, and this is in response to the question, why me? That's not fair. This is about slowing down, taking a breath, proverbial or literal, and responding in a thoughtful and controlled way that takes into account the other person and what they need, rather than reacting in the moment, which only takes into account what I need and what I want. Love these words, again from the book of Proverbs. A gentle answer deflects anger, but harsh words make tempers flare. We can't control what other people do, but we can control what we do. Words kill. Words give life. They're either poison or fruit. You choose. I love that. You choose. Every single one of us listening to this has the choice every day to look for opportunities to extend value and blessing and encouragement to someone else, even when they don't deserve it. Again, from the book of Proverbs, we read this: the right word at the right time, picture this, is like precious gold set in silver. What a beautiful picture. The right word is like, it's the most beautiful gift you can give to another person. Giving them encouragement. The right word at the right time. And again, you may be thinking, okay, I get that, and that makes sense, but what about me? What about me? I could use some encouragement myself. And it's a great question. And here's why I think we often don't get the encouragement that we so desperately need, every single one of us. In our Emotional Healthy series of courses that we run around here, there's one running right now. One of the things we learn in that is that many people, including ourselves, we can lump ourselves in it, don't feel good enough about themselves to let others feel good enough about themselves. Many people don't feel good enough about themselves to let others feel good enough about themselves. And for some, that explains the train wreck that was home for them, and why their parents weren't all that encouraging. For some, it explains the toxic workplaces that we find ourselves in or were in. For some of us, it explains the challenge of some of our more intimate relationships, marriages that we were in or are in. And so the question becomes, how do we deal with that then? Because if the people around us don't feel good enough to extend some encouragement to me, then I can't feel good enough about myself, which means then I can't extend any encouragement to them. It's kind of like we're in this stalemate. And so what do we do? Well, I love these words from Proverbs. I heard them a few years ago when I was in England visiting my daughter. And the church that she went to, the pastor spoke on them there, and they've just stuck with me. It's such a great verse, and there's a beautiful principle in here that I don't want you to miss. Listen to this. The generous will prosper. Those who refresh others, and this is the part I love, those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed. Those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed. What King Solomon is saying there, the guy who wrote these words over 2,000 years ago, he's saying, don't wait. Be the one to take the first step to refresh, to replenish, to encourage others. And when you do that, you too will be refreshed, replenished, encouraged, blessed. That's a beautiful principle. Jesus lived this whole concept out when he turned the other cheek, when he loved his neighbor, when he prayed for his enemies. And he asks us to do the same. And here's the cool thing. That when we invite Jesus into our lives, when we say yes to following him, he promises to not only be beside us, but in us, empowering us as we seek to refresh, replenish, encourage, and love others every day, everywhere. And that's why our vision is to be a church that is known for unleashing God's extravagant love on this city. We want to love this city because Jesus loves this city. And one of the ways we accomplish that is by helping and encouraging people no matter their story. We're kicking off an initiative next week. First Sunday in November, called Fresh Start. And what we're asking is for you to go through your dressers, your closets, check your treadmills and your exercise bikes for all those clothes that you don't wear anymore, and collect them and bring them in. And the things we're looking for are jeans, t-shirts, shirts, button-up shirts, sweatpants, sweaters, socks, running shoes, work boots, backpacks, new underwear. We don't really want your old underwear, just new underwear. And what we're going to do is you just bring them into the church. We got some people that are going to collect them all. And then at the end of the month, they're going to deliver them to the Nanaimo Correctional Center. So the men that are coming out of prison, re-engaging with society or their families, can leave with dignity and encouraged and knowing that they're not alone and that they are loved. One of the interesting things I found out is a lot of guys, when they're coming out of prison, the only thing, when they go into prison, they take all the clothes that they were wearing and put them in a bag and put them in storage until they're released. And for some of those guys, they're arrested in the summertime when they're wearing shorts and t-shirt and flip-flops, and they get released in the middle of winter. Or they're arrested at home in their boxers or their pajamas. Or they're arrested when their clothes are soaking wet and they're put in a bag wet and they pull them out when they're released and they're all full of mold. And so we want to just show these guys that, hey, we love you. God loves you. And you can get more information in your program on our app or at the info table. There'll be people there talking if you're coming in on a Sunday. But in that opening clip, in reply to being accused of being a doctor and practicing medicine without a license, Patch Adams said this. He said, "At what point in history did a doctor become more than a trusted and learned friend who visited and treated the ill?" Now you ask me if I've been practicing medicine. Well, if this means opening your door to those in need, those in pain, caring for them, listening to them, if this is practicing medicine, if this is treating a patient, then I am guilty as charged. My dream is that if we as a church are ever accused of practicing the things we have been asked by God to do, opening our door to those in need, those in pain, whether that's emotional or physical, caring for them, listening to them, refreshing them, encouraging them, if we are ever accused of unleashing God's outrageous, over-the-top, ridiculous, unfathomable love on this city, then my hope is we would stand together and say, we are guilty as charged. And it all begins with you and me putting into practice and applying the things that are designed by God to help us love one another and love our neighbors and love Him. And I am honored to be on this journey with you. Hope to see you on Sunday morning. Thanks for tuning in. I invite you to pray with me. God, sometimes it's when we're hurt, we just want to lash out. We want to get even. We want to pay back. And so you teach that the best thing for us to do is to just slow down and to seek what that other person needs. It's almost like putting ourselves in their shoes and treating them how we would like to be treated, with respect and dignity and understanding. But that's so hard to do. And I would say we're hard-pressed to even attempt it on our own. So we just thank you that you're willing to help us do that. And so I would pray for courage for all of us to just trust you in those situations when the first thing we want to do is we just want to react and act out and get even, that we would take a page from what you teach us and treat others how we would like to be treated, that we could refresh others and in turn we would be refreshed. We thank you for loving us and we pray this in your name.